I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call?
Trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Fisher,
Yes.
trustee Patterson. Present.
Procedural action, public hearing. Review of the public hearing procedures. The first order of business is a public hearing regarding the proposed updates to the Ross Township Land Use Plan. The purpose of the hearing is to allow the public to comment and recommendations regarding the land use plan map. The township has determined to limit oral comment to a hearing 3 minutes to ensure the orderly presentation of comment. I do not intend to cut anyone off mid-sentence, but at the 3-minute mark, commenters should conclude, and I ask that at that time, limitations be respected for the benefit of all present here today. Prior to speaking, please state your name, address for the record. As a reminder, the current land use plan was approved in 2008. Ross Township began a process of updating the township's land use plan as a part of a larger effort to consider whether the township residents wanted the township to take over control of zoning. In November 2022, the township voted against having township zoning, but zoning still remains in place and will now continue to be controlled by the county. While in the process of zoning consideration was underway, a draft of the updated township land use plan was completed but not adopted. The delay in adoption was made until there was a final decision on whether the township or county would control zoning. If the township had adopted zoning, then only the township would have to adopt an updated plan. Now that the county will control zoning in the township wants to submit the draft plan to the county for them to adopt as a guiding document for land use in Ross Township, which is similar to how the existing plan was adopted in 2008. I would like to introduce Wendy Moeller with Compass Point Planning, who serves as a consultant for Ross Township and will review the proposed updates to the Ross Township land use plan. And
Sorry. Oh, you're fine. Yeah.
It worked. Turned it off, I think.
Here it comes, it's warming up. Well, hello again, everybody, and thanks for coming out. Again, as you heard, that we're here to talk about the land use plan. And I wanted to give a brief presentation to everybody. For those, we presented the kind of summary of this plan in previous meetings when we were talking about zoning. But as you heard, we were waiting until we knew what was going to go forward with township zoning before moving this forward for adoption. So it's kind of been on hold since mid last year. And so that's that. We can skip the slide now. What I wanted to focus on tonight was a little bit of what is the plan and how is it used for, and also talk very specifically about where things have changed or not changed in the current plan. The plan itself, if adopted, if it's recommended by the trustees of the county, the regional county, Butler County's Regional Planning Commission will get the recommendation and they will make a decision to approve it or not. If they approve it, what that does is that means the 2008 plan is replaced by this, and the County Regional Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission will use this as a policy guide for any decisions that come in front of the county. If the township doesn't move forward with this plan or they want to change things, the current plan still stands. The current 2008 plan still stands until the county tries to move forward with another version of a plan or update it. Generally, it's always a good idea to update plans at least 5-10 years, depending on what you're looking at, to make sure that it's still relevant, to make changes. I was talking earlier about one of the changes we made that between 2008 and now There were some adjustments to the floodplain map that led to a change in one of the land uses we'll present. This, and I think a lot of you picked up the maps over there. This is the 2008 plan, August 2008. And you can see the list of uses. It may be a little harder on this map, and I don't know if you can see it on your own maps. The development service boundaries, we actually had water and sewer service companies come in and talk to the zoning commission and the trustees about sewer capacity and where they can do it. And basically the development service boundary showcases based on topography, capacity and the like, the areas that could reasonably easily be served by sewer right now. Now, developers or somebody would have to come in and extend the lines, but the topography would allow it to go towards the current system. There's no plans to proactively expand sewer, so they would be waiting for it to do it. And then we have the 2003 plan, which other than cleaning it up a little bit, looks a lot like the 2008 plan because there's only a handful of changes we looked at. And a lot of them are based on just changes that have happened since 2008. So I am going to walk through this kind of one category at a time before turning it back over where, I'm here to answer questions. So one of the things we did is there is at the county level, they have that map, they have the land use categories, and they have countywide goals and objectives. Those countywide goals and objectives are focused almost all on transportation and countywide transportation issues. So one of the things we looked at when updating this was develop a set of goals and objectives that were township specific, that could also be used for the county to look to for making decisions. I'm not going to go through and read those. They're in your packet. These are the main goals, but we try to expand things to talk about more than just transportation. So we talked about parks and open space and neighborhoods and keeping the rural atmosphere and a lot of things that we heard through the zoning process, even though this is not zoning. And I also should go back and reiterate, adopting this plan does not change any zoning. The zoning that you have now continues to be the zoning that there is until another action is taken. So some of the changes, you can see, I tried to point out general areas. We had a slight expansion of areas designated as low density residential. A lot of that has to do with the fact that between 2008 and 2023, there's been lot splits, meaning somebody's just come in and gotten, they've just cut up, it's not been a big development, it's just one or two lots at a time. That kind of goes with the density that's in low density residential. We also had some previous agricultural designation areas within the development service boundaries that were just kind of isolated islands. That's the one in the center. That's the other one we changed to low density residential. Expansion of the public-private recreation area. If you look at the old plan, you'll see that the Forest Run Metro Park was a smaller area at the time. So this shows the entire boundaries of the parklands. And then with the gravel extraction in the 2008 plan, that was designated strictly as gravel and gravel extraction. That's it. That's all that land use was. In discussions with the zoning commission and with the public, the idea was what else could go there, if it wasn't just mineral extraction, and the idea of some kind of recreational use was thought to be a good opportunity. So we've made it a category that it could be either or. It could be gravel extraction, but it also could be public or private recreation. The revision to the 2008 plan, general commercial. So all the red areas you see on the map are the same kind of red areas on the 2008 plan map. But it was called plan general commercial back in 2008. A couple of things we changed. We went to general business areas. Townships and counties by nature can't force somebody to do plan development. The property owner has to ask for it. And also a lot of the development you've had in the commercial has been one property at a time. So the Wendy's went in, the Skyline updated, the UDF. It's not been big, comprehensive, large developments. So we got rid of the idea of it all having to be planned as one big block of development. The 2008 category allowed in all of the red area to be anything commercial, office, or light industrial. We had discussions about whether or not to call out light industrial separately, and actually the county also raised whether or not we should have a light industrial category on the land use plan versus general business. And we've had some discussions about this. And the idea of not going to separate categories was to leave a little bit more flexibility. That there are some areas that are a little bit of a mix of light industrial and office and a little bit of mix of commercial. It's not an industrial park. But one of the things we added in the general business district was that the light industrial should be limited to areas of the township east of 27 and south of 128, west of Cincinnati Brookville Road. So that was part of the discussion, to just not let it to be everywhere. But those areas where it could be light industrial could also still be commercial or office. And so there's a little bit of flexibility in that. That is something that, again, like I said, that's one of the things the County Planning Commission raised as a question of change. That goes through what we just talked about. And then we also had the earlier conversation about the drag strip and, why it went from public, private recreation to general commercial. The reason is actually not because of the drag strip. It's because in the 2008 plan, that showed as floodplain area. And in the updated floodplain maps, it's actually not in the floodplain. And so we took it out of the public-private recreation. Now, could it be public-private recreation? Sure. If the zoning of that area would allow it, which any public recreation would let you be allowed. But we did make that entire area the general business kind of land use category. So that's the reason that area changed. As far as no changes, where we didn't change, we did not change the downtown regional center as currently drafted. I say no change. We did add back in previous discussions about wanting to see certain materials, so not just all vinyl development, but the maximum densities, the maximum percentage of multifamily, and the requirement that any attached housing have exterior entrances like townhomes and stuff remains. So none of that has changed. We didn't change any of the recommended residential densities either. So the agricultural density of 1 unit per acre remains the agricultural density in this. So all of that, the densities, when we talk about low density residential in the 2023 plan, is the same as it was in 2008. So for the majority of the township, the plan continues as it did in 2008. We just kind of refined some of these areas. So the adoption process, you heard a little bit about that. Unlike the township zoning where we had to go through a very meticulous process because the state statute said we had to, there's no state statute about how to adopt a plan. So we looked back at how the township went through the process previously, and we also talked to the county about how they like to see it done. And this was the process they suggested, where we come to the township trustees and have them make a recommendation to the regional planning commission. And then this will be whatever the recommendation is, it would be forwarded to the regional planning commission for their consideration. Again, them adopting this does not change the zoning. All this is used is as a policy guide when somebody does ask for changes in zoning, ask for variances or different conditional uses. They can look to the goals and objectives of this, as well as the land use recommendations for making those decisions. So with that, that's my kind of overview of the changes. And then I guess if you want to run the questions, I'll respond as you see fit. You might go back to them. Well, you won't. Everybody's got the map, I think, so.
Be in charge of homework checking.
Nothing.
Okay, here's the 3 so far.
Okay.
They can remind them to state their address. That'd be great. I'm ready.
I'm sorry.
So let me get your tab ready.
Okay. We'll go with ladies first. Martha Mill. I'm sorry. Let me look at, okay, my apologies. Move for the adoption of motion 23-034 to open the public hearing. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Fisher?
Yes.
Trustee Patterson? Yes. Trustee Blower?
Yes. Presentation of proposed update Ross Township Land Use Plan. Okay, now we're in public participation. Martha, if you would state your address, please.
Come on, here to stand.
In your position, since we don't have a podium.
Good evening. My name's Martha Mel. I live at 2085 Demeritt Lane. Question I have for the, well, not just for Wendy, but for the trustees as well. Back in 2015, the trustees made a decision to have an organization look into what is called Downtown Venice Redevelopment Report. I happen to have a copy of it. Just glancing at it, it looks to be very detailed. It focuses on Venice, our original downtown Ross district. And there's a lot of specifics about how businesses could be started, parking, landscaping, amenities, and things like that. Isn't this a plan that we would want to put alongside our land use plan so that we could show this, at least get it out in front of our county leaders to say, this is something we'd like you to consider for future development? That's my question.
Were you part of that, Wendy, when they decided that?
It's got some, kind of.
Kind of.
So good question. What I don't know, so I wasn't part of the planning process.
Okay.
But I do know the consultants that were. What I don't know is if that was adopted by the township trustees, I know. What I don't know is if it was already like sent up to the county as recommended policy. I do know that the Venice Overlay District we had in the township zoning resolution was meant to, from a zoning standpoint, implement what we could there. There was other stuff in there as far as like street safety sign that would not be controlled by zoning, that would be controlled through investments. So that's not something that would be made decision of through the regional planning. So it's a little bit different, like it's a design plan. So I think that's in part why it's not kind of a secondary part of this. It's much more focused on the design, you know, how is like any amenities created, which are not implemented through zoning. I will say, I know there's been discussions about, you know, could the Venice Overlay District or some version of that be incorporated into the township zoning resolution? And I've only recently looked at the new zoning resolution. I think there's ways about it. But it would require a little bit more effort to create that because they've got some new tools that I'm not sure how they would use this plan differently.
Well, I'm not real familiar with your line of work or what you just said in detail. My point is this. I think it would be an opportunity for us to let the county know, because we know sometimes that our county leaders haven't perhaps always made the kind of zoning changes or variances that everyone in our organization and our township have agreed with. And so my thinking is just, why not get as much in front of them? I mean, good stuff. This isn't something that was just done overnight. It's very extensive. But at least plant the seeds that we don't know exactly what this overlay plan will look like, but at least get it in front of them to let them know that, hey, we put some thought into this. We put some money into this. And so when you're getting ready to grant a dollar store or put in another business or maybe a little boutique restaurant, so a little more of a village look, this is kind of what we'd like to see. And so that's my pitch for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, I don't know historically how that plan was adopted, so.
Next up, Dennis. Can you say your last name for me, please, wherever Dennis is? Watkins? Yeah, Dennis, the floor is yours.
I'm Dennis Watkins. I own property on Herman Road. I was born and raised here in 1948, went to school, made it for 12 years. Ross. I'm just curious to see what's going on with the land. I don't know if you know, me and my brother just inherited the farm there on Herman Road, because our parents just passed this last year. And I just here to wondering, what the planning looks like. They've taken our property and put it into suburban residential. And I just applied for CAB farm for that. I don't think that. And I'm just curious to see what, because I'm a landowner, live in the area anymore. My brother lives a little bit north here of Gondical, and I just here to see what was, wondering what the plans was. It looks pretty good. I appreciate all you people present and your input and see what's going on. Like I say, I've been here since the 40s and when Herman Road was still gravel road.
That's a while. Thank you for attending.
Do you want to address the CAUV?
Not really.
I don't think.
It's not impacted.
No, I was gonna say, well,
I just applied for my CUB too.
Yeah, your CAUV is separate from this. Your CAUV, your farm,
The farm.
with your calves,
your calves, yeah, it's separate from this.
What?
What you've applied for, the,
The CAB.
yep,
Yeah,
it's
because it's
separate.
farm now.
Yep,
and it's fine.
it's fine. It'll be okay with this.
Nope.
Oh, I wasn't sure what you meant about that.
Yeah, no, it's, I
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
didn't want to be wrong, but
Before too. That area has not changed. So the area he's talking about has not changed between the plans.
But if it does change, that could be developed, right?
Yeah, if somebody came in for a zone change.
yeah.
Next up, Steve Fagley.
Effectively 4049 Cypress Lane, quoting from the land plan. Consider long-term approaches to permanent public open spaces and parks, such as the green space or parks levy, to raise funds for the purchase of open space. Such approaches could be explored as part of an overall park recreation and open space plan. I understand that the United States of America today, people are really reluctant to vote for more taxes. I think maybe, and I'm not the first person to say this, mostly this might be well received if we thought of a green space in the Burns Farm land itself. And if not, that'd be a canary in the mine to tell us this is never going to happen. But in that regard, I think it's now or never with Burns Farm. Hey, you want to do it here, Ross Township? And we'll take our lesson from it, yes or no. At a bare minimum, I'd love to see a bike path around the whole land there. Quoting also from the plan, open space within the entire property categorized as downtown regional center should be 35%. I'm curious who the watchdog would be for that. How often would they review it? And you can call me skeptical that it's going to happen. Now we're sitting here looking at a land land update. It's 14 years old, which is real. That's too long. It's already been too long. Whoever should have been watching it, for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. So that 35%, it sounds great, and I think it's well intended. I'm very skeptical that we'll be able to follow through on that.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else that may have come in late that wishes to speak that didn't fill out the form?
So maybe for Wendy. Okay,
Go ahead, if you would stand up, please, and state your name and address.
Russ McCurran, 3958 Clackamas Court. The area that's blue and white, where specifically in Ross is that? Yeah.
Oh, that is the city category. So that downtown regional center is this.
Is that right? That's first. Wasn't that agricultural? Not long ago?
The zoning might be. Long term.
The zoning. Agricultural, pretty sure.
I don't know what they were asking. I wasn't, yeah, I don't know what the original zoning is or what the current.
There's 17 acres in front of it, so.
Right.
B,
Right.
B3,
That's already zoned commercial, yes, of some degree.
B3.
But now they're wanting to change all of that to the downtown regional center.
This does not change the zoning. The zoning remains the same, whatever it is now. This is just what is the land use plan for that area? If somebody wants to come and develop it, we're asking them to follow the plan, just like the 2008 plan.
Anyone else?
Gilbert over here.
Gary?
3663 Lehigh Road. Back in 2008, wasn't there no more extension? On 2008, that area is now gravel extraction or public. That area was going to not be any larger.
Correct?
Because that was. Please.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
The future is your future stating that it could go more gravel?
I think so. Should be. If anything, it's less than the area.
Because you got.
Yeah, it's less. It's been reduced.
I can't say because part of that's in Fairfield Township, part of it's in Ross.
Yeah. No, it's a big question. So all of this. If this is just as needed, I guess. So these stays.
I thought there was, go back and look at 2000. It was going no farther, no more.
This is the 2008 plan.
In the notes for up in different years.
So, I mean, we had the same language that was in 2008, so I don't know if there was any.
That's what I'm asking, is that there was a change through part of that, even though it was, the land use was last looked at in 2008, there is other parts that was written in, just like Margaret's talking about in 15, what they would like to see the Venice area be. But what I'm trying to say is I do not like seeing that we're going to extract more gravel. Have that right. And that's what I'm asking.
I don't, okay.
They just, looks like they combined.
I'll just say thank you and wrap it up.
So the boundaries on the plan for gravel extraction have not changed. We did add that it could, any of that property that is currently shown in 2008 as gravel extraction could be used for public-private recreation. We actually, there's a small portion up towards the highway that we've actually made commercial because it was a little bit more related to that and wasn't being used for gravel extraction. I'm not sure what language, I wasn't made aware of
It's
it.
in there that it's not following Ross Township. Actually, folks, Ronnie Watson's property, where Keith and a lot of the people put up their politician signs, is in Fairfield Township. It's not in Ross Township.
Right. That is correct.
Right. What I'm trying to say is you're probably looking for, there's the area of Ross Township and Fairfield Township. And we don't want to see Ross Township have more gravel, I don't believe. That was back when the other trustees were looking at this area.
So maybe, can I jump in?
Yes, please.
So maybe give us a little time to look through this because I don't think we're quite seeing what you're seeing and we need to look at it. I think the intent was not to expand gravel at all. It was to say in 20, 30 years, if this is no longer gravel, what could it be? And it probably could be some kind of public-private recreation because you've got, set my own timer off. you've got some ability there with the water and turn that into more of a feature, but not to expand current,
For extraction would be a flood.
not, the intent was not to expand the area in which they can do gravel extraction. So I hear your concern. Maybe we could take a look at it, make sure we're seeing the same thing.
Right here in the Great Miami River, and it's done down in Whitewater and stuff like this. The people that own the land, they dig out an area. When the flood comes down, when the water comes down the Great Miami River, it fills that hole back up, and they can extract that area out. That happens quite often.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Can I ask Wendy one more question?
Yes.
If this is adopted into the land use plan, is that going to be a precursor for the county to allow or be more inclined to allow zoning change to whatever within that downtown regional center area?
Yeah, just like it does now. I mean, that downtown regional center as written is in place already.
It is.
The one thing we added in that was, I don't know, because we had a discussion about the building material language that's in this draft is not in the previous one. We added it back in hopes that they would use it, but I mean, this is what we hope the county will look at is the specific, what the township says is okay for me.
Township then would be okay with that. Being turned into that.
Yeah,
As long as the county approved.
well, that's what it is now. The the plan that is in place now says that same thing. So yes, it continues.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we close this portion of the meeting?
Oh, just one question. I didn't catch where you said light industrial. Your name for it. It's not
Ma'am?
separated out in color.
Ma'am, could you please stand up, state your name and address for us, please?
Suzanne Ranch, 2251 Smith Road.
Okay,
Yes, so in the current plan, in the 2008 plan, everywhere that's red, that says the plan, general commercial, in the 2008 plan.
Okay, down at the bottom.
Yeah, well, it's down the bottom, it's up
Down here.
128. It's also up 128 here. All this.
I think in some passages that may be confusing.
That says that the light industrial
Passages may be confusing.
can go anywhere in that red area.
That we just added the hash marks for mining.
In the 2020.
Now she's down here.
All this.
We kept the areas that are red as red,
Okay, this is one.
but we did put we put
Okay.
language
Right,
in
we took
there
this green space out here.
that limits it, and I'm going to tell you, that language. so the 2000, the general business
Right.
category, that's
So we
the red and the new one,
Right.
says light
We got
industrial would only be
Couple areas
appropriate
here on this.
in the areas of the township east of US 27 or south of 128 and areas west of Cincinnati Brookville Road.
Okay, that's the part that I had missed.
No, it's good. So yeah, this does limit the areas of light industrial, but we didn't create a new light industrial district. Because we're saying those areas could be light industrial, but they still could also be commercial.
Okay, so we can move along. I'll ask one final time if anybody else would like to speak before we close. Okay, thank you. Move for the adoption of motion 23-035 to close the hearing. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Fisher?
Yes.
Trustee Patterson? Yes. Trustee Blower?
Yes. Okay, in the next few minutes, we're going to open up our regular meeting. If anybody would like to go ahead and exit the room now before we start, please feel free to do so. Now you're going to be stuck for the next half hour or better. We'll keep you. Thank you very much, Wendy. We appreciate you.
It's always good to see you, but go home. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the public meeting. Move for the adoption of motion 23-036 to dispense with the reading of the minutes from the February 2nd, 2023 regular meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher?
Yes.
Trustee Patterson?
Yes.
Trustee Blower?
Yes. Move for the adoption of motion 23-037 to approve the minutes of the February 2nd, 2023 regular meeting. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher,
Yes.
trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower.
Yes. And fiscal officer's report.
All right, coming around for you to review and sign will be the certification of purchase orders and checks written since the last meeting. I also have in front of you with the blue banner, the export of receipts received since the last meeting. There's nothing too terribly exciting on here. I do want to point out under Ross Township non-police receipts. And then there's a receipt for Ross Township Police. All that is the withholdings from the police department to be able to receipt those in so that I can essentially pay them back to the township. So we withhold them from the employees and then we pay them back to the township. And that's for their medical, dental and vision. All right, moving forward. There's also an appropriation status report for you. Keep in mind, we're 14% through the year already. And again, there's nothing too terribly exciting on the expense side there. I will say that on the Monday of this week, my representative with Legislative Services, Jim Putoff, was in and assisted me in closing the 2022 calendar year. So for your consideration and review, I also have for your signatures, the January bank reconciliation. So that has finally been completed. And then one of the things that I will do, just so you know budgetarily where we are in the year, as a result of closing the year, I was able to send to the Butler County Budget Commission a certificate of estimated resources now that I have final carryover numbers. And with that, they will send me back an amended certificate and we will have a new revenue budget going forward. And then at the next meeting, if all align, if the stars and moon align, we will have permanent appropriations for the board to consider and approve. And then we'll pretty much everything will be good for the remainder of the year. With that being said, I have for you a budgetary summary that gives you our estimates. It tells you where we ended the year for each department and how we're starting the year. The reason that the revenues and expenditures have not been filled in, I could probably fill in the revenues now, but until I get it back from the auditor, I don't have final numbers. And then until you approve final appropriations, I don't have a final number on expenditures. So this will be a work in progress as the year goes. They will continue to be color-coded green as they are estimates, and I don't have good hard numbers until we close the year. So this is all a work in progress. There we go. But I wanted you to be able to see kind of where we were by department. And then later for your consideration for legislation, I'm requesting that there be a motion to approve retroactively the Fire Chief Steve Miller and part-time firefighter EMT Phil Clayton's deployment to East Palestine, Ohio for their IMAC deployment. So just to make sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed. Other than that, if you have any questions for me on anything, I know I rattled off a lot pretty quickly.
I have none. You're completely closed for 2022.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes.
Feeling good.
Congratulations.
Yes. So as Administrator Kyle said, Happy New Year to me on Monday because I finally celebrated the New Year.
Anything else for the fiscal officer?
No.
Okay. Department reports, Administrator Lori Kyle.
And I would like to thank Chief Miller and Captain Morris for their assistance in hosting the meeting this evening.
Thank you.
Tonight, for your consideration, administration has 3 resolutions. The first is an agreement with Mercy Occupational Health. They are the entity that currently provides our random drug and alcohol screening for the CDL drivers in the road department. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration also has enacted an annual query in their clearinghouse. And Mercy Occupational Health will perform those queries for us as well. So the agreement would be to continue the drug and alcohol screening, but also provide the annual query. Do you happen to have any questions about that agreement? And once again, this is just for the road department. For some reason, the fire department CDL drivers are excluded. The next resolution is to enter an agreement for the One Ohio new national opioid settlements. There's 5 more defendants that have been included in the national opioid settlement. So it is to execute a participation agreement to include those new entities. And the final resolution is for nuisance abatement for debris accumulation for a property on Jennifer Drive. You should have a picture of that property in your packet. So if you happen to have any questions about either of those resolutions. Also tonight, administration would like to report, I did meet with our insurance agent for OTARMA, the Ohio Township Association Risk Management Authority. Our policy renews March 1st. We do have a slight increase this year, a little over 9%. You do have a chart in front of you. It compares 21, 22, and 23 in various categories, including general liability, auto liability, property, things along that line. So you can see which areas the different rates have increased. In addition to the annual premium, OTARMA does yearly provide a distribution refund. For 2023, we will get $2,354.74 refunded to us, which is about a little less than what we received in 2022. So if you have any questions about the coverage or the annual policy that will still launch.
No questions?
Vicky, you're going to accept it, and then I'll just need Keith to sign it as president.
And finally, in your packet is a new date. And that's all that it is.
Sorry.
Thank you, Lori. Fire Department Chief Miller.
Thank you, Keith. I just want to give you guys an update from February the 4th. Incident management team received a request to respond to East Palestine, Ohio. This was a request through the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. It really tested. The Ohio Fire Chiefs Association has an emergency response plan. So we had a catastrophic event down here, and if I needed 5 strike teams of engines or tankers, I could call up to the state and request that. They put a request out from departments in the state of Ohio. With that request was also a request for an incident management team. And we're the only credentialed incident management team in the state of Ohio, so we responded. And my apologies for not getting board approval ahead of time. They wanted us to respond in a window of 2 hours. I was at a family funeral, so Phil Clayton, who's part-time firefighter with us, is also the planning section chief with the incident management team. He responded, and my intent was to go up on Tuesday to relieve the incident commander. I get a call on Sunday and say, we need Jepper first thing Monday morning. But upon those guys' arrival, our operations section chief, Randy Hannafin, who's assistant chief with Westchester Township, he took the role as the operations section chief. And with Randy and his group, they developed an operational plan for the city of East Palestine and the surrounding areas. Phil Clayton, who's the planning chief, he developed, and his team developed an incident action plan. And that's just, it's like a guidebook for all the first responders, and you're going to be here and you're going to be there. So they did a great job working with East Palestine, all the mutual aid departments through Northeast Ohio. I was called up Sunday night to come up on Monday because the fear in East Palestine was that the rail cars were still on fire and they were afraid of a BLEVE. And a BLEVE is a boiling liquid evaporation vapor explosion. So those tanks were right at 139 degrees, and the explosion rate was 150. So they made the decision to implode the tanks on Monday on a controlled burn. And they had a company from Louisiana came up. And again, our operations checks and section chief, our safety, our planning guys were all instrumental in that plan. So they planned a controlled implosion on the tanks to fear they wouldn't explode. So that was done on Monday afternoon around 4 o'clock. The damnedest thing I ever seen in my life in my 45-year career. Kind of made you sick just seeing the pollution in the air just from this, and hell, it even went up on radar. But the good side is if those tanks would have detonated or exploded, it would have been a catastrophic event. So they set the tanks off on around 4 o'clock on Monday. On Tuesday, we were winding down, and we weren't going to leave until the fire chief that felt comfortable for us leaving. And the fire chief had a lot on his plate because he wasn't going to order everybody to come back in town until everybody sat at the table and was in agreement it was okay to come back, which is getting a lot of press right now. But during our operations, our team, I think, represented Butler County very well, definitely represented the state of Ohio. Our team got to sit down with the governor to explain our operations and what we do. And we also got an opportunity to sit down with the director of public safety, Andy Wilson, who I mentioned the other day in our meeting, and explain our role. And I explained to him as our team, we've been on 15 different deployments all over the country. And this is really the first time that our team has been able to work and operate in the state of Ohio. So they were very happy with us. The other thing our team played a big role with is working with the fiscal officer of East Palestine and actually guiding her on what to do as far as capturing everything, because North Fork Western or the railroad, agreed to reimburse everybody. So we played a pivotal role with her. So I've submitted all of our expenses to Butler County today. That will go up to the state. The state will bill East Palestine, and they will get it from railroad and we'll get paid. But I appreciate the opportunity to let me deploy on these types of incidents. A little windy, but thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of such a critical team throughout the state.
My pleasure.
We know what you do. Is the squad that went out of service a week or so ago, is it back?
Yeah, and if I can, Keith, just for a second. So our new squad probably isn't going to be here till sometime late in the year. And my intent was to keep our Medic 103, our reserve, until that new unit come in. We had a Medic unit go out of service, and honestly, I don't trust that thing mechanically. And I decided not to use it, and I brought a backup unit from Fairfield Township. So these guys have got some stuff going on gov deals in March. And I don't know if I need approval or if you guys need to approve it, but I would like to go ahead and strip that squad and get it up on gov deals. And if something happens to one of our primary squads between now and then, Fairfield Township's got 2 reserve units that we could borrow, and they owe us quite a few because we lent them ours quite many times.
Yeah, they used the Gator too for quite a while for COVID.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, 1 squad for COVID, and then don't they use the Gator at the fair?
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah.
So 103 is done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just don't trust it to use as a life squad. There's too many mechanical issues with it. So we'll start prepping that thing for.
Okay.
I think we do need to approve it for gov deals, don't we? Don't you need
There
something
will be
from
a
us?
resolution that includes everything.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Chief. Police Chief Roberts.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Road.
Road Department, you're in there
We
again,
don't want
Paul.
Paul to not get his chance to shine.
I don't mind.
Road Superintendent, Paul Bullock.
I just wanted to update you. Lori and I attended a annual planning meeting with the county engineer's office. Got a couple of topics. One of them, you asked last meeting about recycled content in the asphalt. If we had a role, if we could change that or whatever. There is a certain percentage of it. It's a state spec that ODOT puts out for the contract, and the county holds the contractor to that spec. And they said it would actually cost us more to try to put more in because they'd have to stop and run a special batch for us, and they don't even want to do that. But if they did, it would cost us more.
There's no savings.
Yeah, there's no doing that.
Okay.
They have been working on a drainage study for us on Black Road, just north of Brenda. It floods when we get a heavy rain. It's an ongoing study still. It's probably going to end up with us replacing the culvert under the road for a much larger one. Some ditch work across the east side in a couple of properties, and maybe a driveway pipe or two also to get rid of that water. So when the final study comes out, we will have their recommendations, and then we'll decide, because it'll be on us, what we can do with it. So when I get that final say from them, I'll bring it to you. The other thing, the only project the county has in Ross Township this year is they'll be paving New London Road from 27 to Lehigh. And just before they pave it, it'll be closed for a little while. They have a culvert to replace. That was the only thing they had going on this year in our township. Yeah, I believe that was it, unless, Lori, if you had anything else. Yeah, that's all I had tonight.
Thank you, Paul.
I'd like to just recognize Paul for his presentation to Rep. Davidson during the week. That was very impressive, and I think you did a great job of explaining how you and your crew are first responders a lot of times, and that you guys deserve that recognition that you presented to him. So if you guys aren't out there clearing the snow and the trees and that, it makes it tough for everybody else, right? So thanks for what you do. And that was, yeah, excellent presentation to him.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to Police Department, Chief Roberts.
Thank you. We will be doing our next drug take back. It's scheduled for April 22nd, 2023. We'll be putting it out on our social media page and all that. Usually runs from, I believe, 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. We were contacted, believe it or not, by the grant that we just got turned down for. They have reached out to us again to, I guess they've had second thoughts that maybe Ross Township is a rural community. So they've asked me to reapply. I have a phone conversation with them tomorrow to make sure that I have all the documentation to show that Ross Township is actually a rural community and that we have nothing to do with Cincinnati and Hamilton County. So hopefully that grant goes through. I believe it's for about $50,000 to help purchase equipment and stuff along those lines. So we have till March 31st to get that submitted. And on a side note, Alex Betts, who we just swore in a couple of weeks ago, has decided that law enforcement is not exactly for him, so he has resigned. I think he's going to go back into doing landscaping architecture, but fortunately it hasn't worked out for him. On a positive note, Norris Tactical finished their first training, 3-day training class today. I believe there was 15 officers that went through the class with multiple agencies in Butler County, Trenton, Oxford, and Fairfield Township. Went through it. Sheriff's Department went through it, and one of our officers went through it. Seemed like it went pretty well. And if you haven't had a chance, I recommend or encourage you to go back there and look at the house that's been constructed in that back area. It looks pretty nice. It's not completely finished, but work in progress for them. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on to public participation. Do we have anybody for the regular meeting? Nope.
Nope. Not so far, unless, Jerry,
Oh. Gary?
Yes. Jerry Hilbert, 3663 Lehigh Road. Last meeting on the second, we talked about Union Keith. And
Yes.
changing our meetings instead of twice a month to once a month. Brought that up.
Yes, sir, I did.
And it did get tabled for right now. And also we had the other trustee. That was Mrs. Patterson. And Don Fisher said, what about public participation? We have 8 people on our board. 3 of them are trustees and 5 working people that work more than 40 hours a week. They supply you the information so you can look at it. I don't feel it's right. I'm living here, this is my 20th year, moved here. And I like it that I see Chief Miller, Paul, all the other people, Warren, all of them. When we sit at a meeting and somebody's got a question, it's brought up. And it's, yeah, I don't make them all. But it's brought up. There's 24 meetings a year, not 12. And it's public participation also. Now, are you going to talk about it or not?
Yes, it's in old business tonight on the agenda.
That's how I feel. And I think there's probably more people in this group feels the same way. And I like what you do. But I also got to remember, we have 2, all 3 of you will be coming up in about a year to be nominated as trustee.
2 this year.
Yes. And I have nothing against how it was done. It was probably done legally. Tom passed away first. Alan, you were there. We got him done. And then you 2 brought in John. But none of the other people in the room really knew about it. Now, I think we need to really look at it so they have a chance to vote and run for a trustee and not the people just say, we don't want you. Does that make sense?
Kind of losing me there on your last sentence, but it does, and I'll explain that further in just a minute.
My last thought is the people, the public people that pays, and we're all public people here, we all pay the bill for the taxes and everything else. Didn't really get a chance. I know it was done the right way.
Yes.
But they've got to go out and we need to see how they work. It's their trial period for about a year. You're just too daggone old. We know how you work. Next.
And that was an amazing time for the timer to go off.
I'm trying to say, we need to know how they work so that we can say, yes, we want you and vote for them next year.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question in regards, I don't know if you're familiar with the lawsuit that
just state her name and.
State her name.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you know what, I'd like to address that too. I'm Diane Servelt, but I think that we need to address the addresses given. I don't think that that's necessary since we don't have to live here. So I think if you could look at that, just for the protection of the people and with doxing the way it is. So that's just Diane Servelt, 1823 Wagon Wheel Drive. I would like to know if you all could contact Butler County to find out how much it's costing the taxpayers of Butler County to defend Judge Stevens in defense of Magistrate Kimberly Edelstein in the case where she won a First Amendment just on, I believe it was the 4th of February of $1.1 million. We fought this case. Apparently they fought this case for the last 6 years. She won and they just appealed it. I'd like to know how much more money this is going to cost the taxpayers. Because as of, I believe with Corsa from Judy Boyko, they've also done the $100,000 deductible for the bond for Judge Stevens. So I'd like to know how much this is actually paying, how much it's costing the taxpayers in Butler County. And I think that you guys could probably find that out And if you could get back to me on that to find out exactly how much it's costing the taxpayers, since we all live in Butler County.
And you see me just turn to trustee Patterson here. That, and you just mentioned Judy Boyko's name. That would be more a county issue than a township trustee. They would have more access to quicker information than we would. We would just be another little stepping stone to ask them the same
I
question
know, but
you're
I'm
asking.
just asking you to do that.
Still doesn't fall a Crown Township business.
Yeah.
And I don't even know the case you're talking about, and I read the Journal News every day.
I would recommend you make a public records request to them
I
or,
know how to do that very well.
Yeah.
They just thought they would be good because everybody here in this room, we pay taxes in Butler County.
sure.
And so you guys are our representatives up there too. So we don't have to do this all the time. So
Anyone else this evening? Okay, moving on to township business, old business. Verizon Wireless cell site lease modification proposal. Revised offer of $1,000 per month and 7 additional 5-year terms. Currently receiving $1,341.67 per month. Lori, do you have anything else on that?
At the last meeting, trustee Patterson asked that several items be checked into. First one, the cell tower, who is responsible for removal of the cell tower should the lease be terminated? And I believe I provided you copies of the agreement with that information highlighted. They are in fact responsible. Let's see, what was the other item should be highlighted on?
It was notice and how many extensions we had still to roll forward and how much notice we had to give.
And also if any other carriers use the cell tower. I was told that we would actually be receiving rent from those carriers if any others were using the cell tower, and we are not.
And I think the idea behind that was, they asked us for no apparent reason to reduce what we were taking, and we pushed back on that. And then they came up with another number, but still wasn't just a continuation of where we were. And that got into, the cost of steel to build themselves a new tower, or they could co-locate on like a water tower, something like that. But there's still costs to that. Someone's still going to negotiate that. They'll have a cost to take down the existing tower. They're going to have a problem if that service is not adequate for their consumers in the area. I mean, there's just lots of things that don't seem to me to make sense why we would take less money when they seem to have a lot of reasons that they would want to maintain this contract. But totally open to discussion on things I haven't thought of or other perspectives.
Yeah. What's the negotiation process with them? I mean, is it just through email?
Called several times and quite honestly, I didn't believe it was legitimate and I even let the fiscal officer hear one of them that it was not a very professional sounding message. But then I did receive an email and it's not been a very in-depth conversation. And when I inquired about if any other carriers utilize the tower, the response from the person that's been the negotiator said that he didn't know the answer to that. And so I responded with, well, please let me know who I can contact that would know the answer to that. Sure. And he gave me a phone number. And that person was very cordial and provided me with the answer. And I asked him, I said, so this is a legitimate offer. I was a little concerned in this day and age how, what something that appears to be legitimate might not be. And he said, oh, yes, that is a legitimate offer. But he said, by no means are you obligated to accept it.
Okay.
So.
Do you feel they just threw that price out there to see if we'd accept it? I think so too.
See if anyone caught it.
we have a time limit on when their next agreement has to be made, that we will rebuttal, that we're not willing to take a lesser amount? Is there a date? Do we know of? Nope.
No, I told him that I would respond tomorrow with your response from tonight, but no, he's not given me any. We're in the middle of a 5-year.
Okay.
We have several 5-year terms left to go.
So you said you would contact me again tomorrow with our discussions this evening?
There's several 5-year terms to go and there's an escalator in each term.
Why would we take less now?
Yeah,
Right. Is there a certain percentage on that each year?
yeah.
Did I miss that or is it highlighted? Yeah, 15%.
15%.
Okay. How would we like Lori to address that phone call tomorrow? Do we want to go ahead and add the 15% to the present cost of 1341.67? Or tell them, advise them that we're not willing to come off that amount that we've been previously paid?
Let me ask this, is there anything? What are they doing? They're offloading for some reason, right? They're offloading their liabilities. Is there, so there's a present value to money for them, right? They want something different now. Is there anything we want paid for that a lump sum upfront right now would take care of? So like we'll reduce it over time, but we need cash upfront of this amount right now, which I would argue should be more than total, right? Because value of money over time. Because it fits a gap or it solves a problem that we have, or there's an immediate need. Like that's the negotiation part, right? Of I have no desire to do any favors for them just to be nice. I mean, we have a contract, but if there is a favor, quote unquote, air quotes, that solves a problem we have, I don't know that we have such easy numbers because I'm not the fiscal officer for a reason. So let's just say there's 30 grand on the table. Do we have a 30 grand hole that we need to fill that we could say, okay, we'll take your deal. And in return, you owe us a check for 30 grand within 60 days.
Would it be unreasonable to link it to our radio systems? We're currently looking to patch, to add some patches to the current radios, which is a sizable amount for both the fire and police departments. I would venture to guess it's probably going to be a combined total of 15,000, 20.
Yeah, but go ahead and ask for $250,000. Let's get it over with.
Well, I don't want to be.
We're going to add a rider, don't you worry.
I'm just saying because it's a communications.
Sure.
Right.
I feel like it fits in the mold. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't, just for the patches, not for the new radios.
Oh,
I know, don't get excited.
But if we're talking that, we got 3 departments. I don't want to leave the road department out if we're gonna send some the fire department's way and police
That's true
department's way. We have to share it across the board, whatever,
Okay, well, that
whatever
was just
number we
That
come
was
up
just
with.
my first thought.
Yeah, good
Well,
thought.
I mean, does it,
Tower is sitting on.
You're the one receiving the radiation each and every day. If somebody talks on a cell phone, correct? Stay inside the building. Don't get close.
all these creeps out with
It
that?
does make a loud hum when it's snowing outside.
So
But
maybe
that's a good idea.
is maybe their response back to them that the board had no opinion on your offer. The board is not excited about your offer. And we'll be getting back to you within a month or so with potential alternatives. If the board can't identify potential alternatives, we would expect that the existing contract would be honored. Is that accurate? And then that gives you guys some time to think about radios, because I do like that. I mean, that is a safety need and a communications need. It would certainly be, I think, helpful. And then we can decide when we have actual numbers instead of my made up numbers. Does that sound good to you?
Absolutely. Lump sum. Anything else on the, I'm sorry?
Say, what's the title? What's the guy's title that's calling? I mean, does he have a title? Not like intern, right? Just. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, remaining in old business is the discussion on the 2023 meeting schedule. I brought this up at the last meeting about changing to one business meeting a month and holding that third Thursday of the month open for either an additional meeting if business requires it, or using that Thursday as a work session for the trustees where the department heads would not be needed unless that discussion was about them. Did a little soul searching on the internet throughout Butler County townships, excluding Lemon Township, which has a terrible website and kept sending me to Wikipedia. We're about half, where half the townships conduct one, half the townships conduct a second meeting a month. I bring this up again to open that second meeting up where I have seen over my first and 5 years that so many second meetings besides this one where we have such a large crowd over our land use plan that most department heads do not have anything to present on the second meeting, and that conduct all their business with their numbers at the first meeting. And that would free them up. Everything you see in front of the board this evening is done up by our township fiscal officer and or administrator, which takes up quite a bit of a business day for them to prepare the agenda. Again, I feel that unless there was something very pressing, again, the township meetings are to conduct the business of Ross Township, and I feel most of them would and could be conducted in the first meeting of the month. It would create that meeting to be longer in duration because we would be handling the business for a complete month versus splitting it in half. So in all honesty, I don't feel any township business would be neglected. And so that is my thoughts. And we've taken the last 2 weeks and we'll take an additional 2 weeks as a board to think about it before we vote on it at the first meeting in March. I will open this part of the floor up to either one of my constituents to speak on their behalf of what they think.
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think everybody knows I have dual roles. I'm staff in one community and I'm appointed in another. Yeah, sure. I think everybody knows I have dual roles. I'm staff in one community and I'm appointed here. And I would say that the time to prepare for meetings, if we can streamline that from a staff perspective, is really nice. I also hear, I think Mr. Fisher brought up, that public participation piece and making sure we're available. I think that's important. I also think there's just sometimes where you just have to have conversations and not be having business, and you just need to really think through some things, like a very small example being the cell phone tower. And there's a benefit to clearing the table from business and saying, we're going to be here and the topic of this meeting is going to be X. And you can still come and have a public comment on anything that you think needs to come to us. We're available, emails, cell phones. But that's our goal, is to dive into this for 2 hours and really try to figure it out instead of just passing through the business and then everyone's tired and then maybe something gets missed. And, the township has a lot of relevant issues that are deserving of a couple hours to themselves as a standalone discussion. So that would be kind of where I'm coming from. I'm okay with it. I think if you've been to meetings, I'm big on us talking. So I'm good with a trial run of a business meeting and a work session with public participation at both. Department heads would be requested to join that second work session if it pertained to them. And I would say if we do that, we make a calendar for that time and it's out there. This is what we're talking about on these meetings. And if you're really interested in it, absolutely show up. If you are moderately interested in it, that's great. If you are not worried about it, then you also have your Thursday back. So
Yeah, I concur with that. And as Jerry said, I do respect everyone's time and that it takes your time during the week after a long day. I would put that in balance as well. But yeah, I concur with your comments.
I like the idea. You have any thoughts on that you want to? A trial run?
Yes.
Calendar of ideas?
Absolutely.
Public, I think John's point was well taken, public participation at
Yeah.
both. At the
Yeah,
beginning.
we don't want to hinder anyone from being able to speak out and address.
Yeah.
Sure. As well as I know we've talked about the idea of committees forming. If we can incorporate kind of that committee time in there as well, that is still pushing things forward. We're getting, voice from the community as well.
That's a good
Yeah,
point. As we
yeah.
think about those committees
Right.
and what
'cause that's
that
only
looks
more
like,
time
that could come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so next legislation at the next meeting
Yes,
from Lori to adjust.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
it does. Okay, being no further old business, we'll move on to new, general, nothing from the administration, anything from the board? Announcements, nothing from the administration, anything from the board?
No.
Correspondence. We all received an email from a resident regarding traffic passing area on Cincinnati Brookville Road. Lori, am I to read this letter or just speak about it in general? Okay, the board, police department, I believe everybody got it. Of a sort of traffic speed on Cincinnati Brookville between Scottwood and Brown Farm, east and west. Their concern was speed and accidents. I in turn emailed the chief and he got stats together from 2020, 2021, and 2022 that I'm able to present to the person that emailed the board about this traffic situation. That section of Cincinnati Brookville Road is 45. It turns to 45 from the red light to the bridge over Indian Creek is 35 miles an hour. Then it ups to 45 to the foot of the hill climbing towards Brown Farm. Then it adjusts back up to 55. In the late 80s, early 90s, it was adjusted down in that area from Indian Creek to the foot of the hill from 55 to 45. I think the person that ran that to the state of Ohio through the board of trustees was Major Nippenberg, who was a firefighter and lived on the corner of Dry Run in Cincinnati Brookville. To hear from the board, I exit my subdivision, as many of you do, from Jennifer. I know a lot of people coming out of off of Rabina back that way, not necessarily Ross Trails, which will use most of them exit onto Lehigh Road. But a lot of people do not like to leave Brown Farm Road to make the left-hand turn to go towards Ross. They will drop down Quercus to Jennifer and out that way due to somebody crest the hill at 55. And like I was talking to Chief Burton here a few minutes ago, before the meeting started, on my days in the police department, I have clocked people from sitting at the edge of that bridge, both directions, coming away from the red light in the 50s, into 35, or into the 80s coming down the hill. Been written many a citations in that area. People are going to speed, they're going to speed whether we adjust the speed limit or not. The board, if everyone agrees, we can still send off a letter to the state of Ohio and ask them for a reduction in speed limit. I would actually, in that letter, if everyone agrees, I'd like to see that, if they're agreeable to drop it, I'd like to see it go to 35 just beyond Brown Farm Drive. Again, that doesn't make people adhere to it. If they're going to speed, they're going to speed. Law-abiding citizens do the 35 miles an hour. But if my other board members would like to speak about this and either agree or disagree to send a memo to the state of Ohio with the help of our administrator and the chief of police.
Yeah, I'd like
Go
to
ahead,
hear these
Mr.
guys'
Bula.
opinion. Yeah.
Sorry, I was the only one that didn't get this email.
You're on the website.
No.
I'll give you a copy, my copy.
I already sent it.
Okay.
My concern with that, I understand your concerns, I agree, but you've got a lot of trucks coming down that road. They're gonna go from 55 to
Agree.
35.
I did left that out.
And you already put in there no jake brakes in that area, so that's asking a lot of trucks coming down the hill.
Yeah.
Good point.
I agree that it shouldn't be a passing zone down there with all the streets that enter that area. I don't know why it's a passing zone, but as far as dropping the speed limit, from Brown Farm there, that would be my concern is everybody's gonna go from 55 to 35. And I know how many trucks run that road. You're gonna ask them not to use their Jake brake and to slow down 20 miles an hour in that short period of time, but that's just my opinion. You got
That is one perspective I did not think of. Thank you very much.
Chief Robert, what's your opinion?
Well, I mean, if you just look at the stats, I mean, and I would agree with Paul about taking out the dotted line so that you could pass, but I mean, the stats would argue that it's not reality, that we don't have that many accidents in that area. And the stats that I provided you were actually the entire street of Cincinnati Brookville. But even if you look at the ones in the general area that he was talking about, we only had like 1 or 2 a year, and they weren't related to speed. It was weather related or the deer strikes or something along those lines. It had nothing to do with the speed or the passing like he was implying in that email. So, but I would agree as far as the truck and everything, but that should be a pass zone through there.
And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I will say, I've come out of Jennifer to turn left to go into Ross, and I'm looking dead at somebody on the overtake. And I've gone off into Gene's nicely cut grass.
I think sometimes there's a feeling of, well, we'll just reduce the speed limit and that'll work. And I completely, I understand that feeling, right? But those speed limits are set based off of a variety of factors, curves in the road, type of asphalt, ingress and egress on either side, type of vehicles. Like there's a science to that is done by traffic engineers. And just as general policy, I think if we get a request like that, we need to run it through someone who can evaluate that and make a recommendation back to us. So whether that's the county engineer or whether that is the state, I'm not clear on that road who that would be, but my gut feeling is that the no passing makes sense. I think the brakes and the no Jake, that makes sense. I understand the data. I think it also makes sense to take it to a professional traffic engineer and have someone take a look at that and see where things have changed, just as policy, whether it's a neighborhood street or it's Cincinnati Brookville or it's New London or something like that. I just think that's a good place for us to start going. The only other thing I would say too is just the challenge and why this gentleman has had to wait a little while to get a response is because we can't really talk about it till we're here. So I just ask that if people do email us questions and you don't hear from us, it's because we can't talk about it till we're here. And just kind of an awareness of that as we try to have these discussions out so that more of us can hear the thought process. So Paul, who would that be? Is that the county, do you think, that would take a look at that, or?
It's ODOT's road.
So it's a state, we just need to go to District 8 and ask them? Okay, so maybe that's a letter from us requesting a traffic review at this area.
For no passing.
For no passing and speed. Let's ask. Okay, let's ask. And let's also say we have concerns, and these are our concerns.
Right.
Have them take a look at it.
Right.
So we're kind of up and up on that and see.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of science and.
And they may come back and say you could technically lower the speed limit, and we may say, you know what, let's go no passing first. I mean, that'll be, that discussion.
So how do we do it? Draft the letter and all three of us sign it at the next meeting?
Yeah.
You can get his email address, who we need to speak with, and we'll draft something up. Okay, great.
Right.
Outstanding.
Can you write back to him?
Figures, because we submit them to the state or all the accidents, so they have those.
Yeah, just that we're requesting it as well.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Yes, I did
go back
reply
to
to him saying that we would be speaking about it in new business. I will, and I've saved his email, and I will reply back that we're asking for that study. And then also that I stopped by his house if he would like to look that over for his concerns.
Yep. That works.
All right, outstanding. Okay, we got.
Nothing, just you right here.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to township legislation purpose. In order to adhere to requirements for commercial driver's license holders, random drug and alcohol testing, and Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration clearinghouse limited queries as necessary. The following resolution entered into an agreement with third-party administrator to provide those services. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2023-013 entering into an agreement with Mercy Occupational Health to provide random drug and alcohol testing services, and Department of Transportation Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse Limited Queries, and authorizing the township administrator to execute the agreement. I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes. Earlier in the meeting, the township administrator reviewed the need for an emergency resolution to participate in the One Ohio New National Opioid Settlements. The following resolution affirms that participation. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2023-014 to authorize the administrator to execute participation forms for the new national opioid settlements with Teva, Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart settling defendants pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding regarding the pursuant and use of potential opioid litigation settlement funds and consistent with the material terms of July 21st, 2021 proposal National Opioid Distribution Settlement Agreement. I need a second.
Second.
Do this here.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes. Earlier in the meeting, the township administrator provided evidence of a nuisance violation to exist on property on Jennifer Drive. This resolution declares that property to be a nuisance and orders its abatement. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2023-015, declaring a nuisance for accumulation of debris at 4078 Jennifer Drive. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes. Closing action. Move for the adoption of motion 23-038 to pay the bills as presented through the fiscal officer's certification of purchase orders. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes. Move for the adoption of motion 23-039 to approve retroactively to February 4th, 2023, the deployment of Fire Chief Steve Miller, firefighter EMTA Phil Clayton for the Butler County Incident Management Team to East Palestine, Ohio, to assist with the train derailment and established in policy 620, benefits and compensation of a local government manual summary of personal policies. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes. Move for the adoption of motion 23-040 to retire to executive session to consider confidential information related to marketing plans, specific business strategies, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiate with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22G8. The time is 7:30 PM. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
2023 or what?
We have one of those in the conference. room.
Ready. Okay. Move for the adoption of motion 23-041 to return from executive session to the regular meeting. The time is,
9:40.
I need a second.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher?
Yes.
Trustee Patterson?
Yes.
Trustee Blower?
Yes. Is there any further business to come before the board?
No, I don't have anything.
Move for the adoption of motion 23-042 to adjourn the meeting. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Fisher?
Yes.
Trustee Patterson?
Yes.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
You want to say when the next meeting is?
I did have to close the other one. You want me to read it? The next meeting will be March 2nd at 6 PM at the Ross Township Government Center.